So we're doing this.
Check, check. 1, 2.
First time. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Being my first guest. So finally did it. A lot of time talking about it. And now we're sitting at a table with a little bit of Buffalo Trace.
Excellent choice.
Ready to talk some water nerd stuff. So, yeah, man. Well, obviously let's start with your, I know you got a disclaimer. So why don't we start with that disclaimer first of all?
It's probably good. Yeah, let's start there. So I do work for Mueller Water Products. I was told coming on the podcast was just fine, but do need to disclaim that, anything I say during this is going to be my opinion and not that of Mueller's.
All right, so let's jump into politics.
Yep, perfect. And so that being said, now let's skip that.
Trans rights, what do you think? Go.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so...
No, so all right, why don't you go ahead and for the people that don't attend all the conferences, since you're all over the West, why don't you start by introducing yourself, your position at Mueller, what you do, and we'll start there.
Yeah, nice softball. Okay, so my name's Mike, Mike Uthe. I am currently living in Bozeman, Montana, and been working for Mueller now about 5 years. So during that time, I started with just the Northwest, and now I'm covering the whole West for our technology division.
Okay. And what all does that entail?
Well, it's basically everything that Mueller's acquired over the years that they didn't really fit into their portfolio of hydrants and valves and brass. And so we have a leak detection division. We do condition assessment. We do pressure monitoring, management, and anything with water quality like flushing, sampling. So kind of a wide gamut of stuff, actually.
Excellent. And how did you get into that?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because I know most people don't wake up or they decide when they're in middle school that they want to get into the water industry.
Yeah, I wouldn't say growing up that I even knew this industry existed,
right.
Or that pipes were under the street. So, really, I went to school for petroleum engineering, which, you know what that is?
Yeah, is that going to be oil and gas?
It has something to do with oil and gas, yeah. So basically we extract oil and gas from the ground, right? And that industry really goes up and down.
Yeah.
And so we hit a downturn about 2014, moved back to Montana, and basically had no idea what I was doing with my life. And actually a guy up there in Bozeman hired me on for a rep firm.
Okay.
You know what that is, right?
I do know what a represent. Manufacturer's rep firm? Yep.
So do you want to introduce yourself, or do they all know who you are?
No, they don't know who I am yet, so I kind of leave it that way. We're going to go with the ambiguity.
So John works for a rep firm. So I started there and kind of started learning about the industry. At that time, I also went back to school and decided I was never going back to the oil field. I don't know if you've been to Williston, North Dakota, but back in the oil boom, that was a rough town to be in.
Yeah,
especially as a single dude. So
absolutely, yeah. So you were out in the field there, the man camps?
Oh yeah, I was living out with the guys. There was actually 6 of us in one trailer with one bathroom. So,
yeah, which gets a little tricky with how much I'm sure those guys like to drink.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. Like the Wild West is actually probably the best way to describe that time in my life. So yeah, moved back to Bozeman, went back to school. Even before I finished, Mueller picked me up because I was selling their stuff as a rep.
Okay.
And now I work for them directly.
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty cool story. I know I've heard it in your classes. Why don't you, I always think it's fascinating hearing how these big companies start out.
Yeah.
So I know you got that one dialed in by memory, right?
Probably, yeah. I don't have my slide deck with me, so you can't see. But so if you didn't know, Mueller is the last name of the guy that started the company. And his name was Hieronymus Mueller. He was a German immigrant. So this was back like 1870. Moved to America. He actually moved to Decatur, Illinois. Have you been to Decatur?
I have not.
It's beautiful this time of year.
I bet.
So Decatur, it's near Chicago, but basically it's where the rails were going through. The guy, throughout the course of his life, had about 400 patents.
Okay.
So just a couple. And really where he got into the water industry was they were trying to tap into cast iron mains.
Gotcha.
So they went from wood to cast, and this was a big change in the industry, a big change in the country.
So we're talking about what year there?
Talking 1870s,
1880s. 60s, 70s usually, yeah.
Yeah, so prior to that, there was wood mains, which there's still Woodmans in service, you know
Yep.
this?
Especially up if you go into Wyoming. I know there's one there on Elk Mountain.
Yeah, I mean, they work just fine as long as they don't break. And so what's cool about Woodmans is you can tap them by just basically punching a hole in it with a
Right.
hammer. So that doesn't work on cast.
No.
So that was really where Hieronymus got his big start, was the original like pressurized tapping machine. You seen the B101?
Yeah.
So we still sell those. That was one of his first things. And really, Mueller got into that, and he grew so fast that honestly, I think was the guy that kind of set up distribution the way we see it in the water industry now, which like we all just expect that's how things work now.
So we have him to thank.
Yes, asshole. So, yeah, no, seriously, that was kind of, he realized that he couldn't sell direct to everyone
Sure.
because everyone will start wanting these machines because they're doing this all across country. So he started setting up distribution channels. And then Mueller got into what we think of today, hydrants, valves, the original pressure regulator, which I'm sure we'll talk about PRVs today because
Some point, I'm sure it always comes up.
John loves PRVs. So you know about the Mueller bends? You've seen that?
The Mueller bends. No.
You haven't? Really? So, what is it? Carl Benz, Carl with a K because he's German. He started a car company, and it's still around, right? So Mueller was helping him. He basically got one of the first models and was tinkering around with it. So the original spark plug was a Mueller, as well as variable speed transmission, carburetor, all those things. So that was kind of the end of his career. But like, there's so many things like tap beer, beer faucet, Mueller invention. Like, there's things that all of us use every day. So the guy was way ahead of his time, and basically built an empire. Because at a certain point, his production capabilities, he was like, I'm just going to do this in house, and he started setting up foundries. And really, that's our biggest thing now is we make our stuff in America.
Yeah.
And not everyone does that.
Nope.
So American-made products, and really innovation was what got him into where he is. And so his name's, it's on my shirt. It's it's all over if you know this industry. The guy really created a legacy in I'm going to get this wrong, 176 years?
176, yeah. So we're with, Watts, for example, 150 years. And they just hit that, past that, just this last
So we're
year.
older than Watts?
Yeah. Yep. Indeed.
Nice.
So, and how about, for the foundries, when was the first foundry for Mueller, in producing material?
Yeah, so Decatur, 1907.
Okay.
And that thing was up and running until the last decade.
Okay.
We finally shut it down, opened a new one. So if you didn't know, brass for Mueller and a lot of the industry is now heading this direction. We've changed the chemical components of it. And so we're now using a silicone, which means we don't have to import as much material to make it. There's a lot of reasons, but it's cheaper, stronger, better.
Yeah.
And so the new foundry.
Lead might be a reason too.
Asbestos and lead were a big part of this, industry.
Absolutely.
And we all now realize that was a bad idea. But
Well, that just develops up now. We're hearing PFAS, right? So it's the next new thing.
my parents smoke cigarettes in the car, so.
Yeah. Well, it's like I was talking to Brent the other day, and he was saying, he was joking around talking about his Zen and his chew, and saying that now, latest studies are nicotine's now good for you.
Is it?
One day it's good.
We're way ahead of our time now.
So we're just looking for the next chemical, right? And then you had, I think was it last year or 2 years ago, the report that was put out on plastic pipe and chemicals, and it's crazy time because everyone's looking for the next thing from the EPA or the next scare or what else is out there. We don't even have to get into fluoride, right, in water.
Yeah, well, Utah got rid of it, so that's a conversation at the moment. But I do think that lead look at AC pipe. It holds up great. And if people don't know what that is, which in this industry you do, but people freak out. Mm-hmm. Reality is that pipe's a great pipe, and you can drink that water just fine. But
problem becomes when you
cut it.
When you cut it, when you have a break, or when you're, basically you've calcified or encapsulated any of the harmful substances. So when you change the dynamic in the system and kick up, get turbulent flow, then you get things like Flint.
Yes. And I mean, Mueller was definitely involved there. I think that's really what put it on the map for a lot of people, like the general public.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people just take for granted in America you can turn on a faucet, drink it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Have you been to other countries? Because that's not always a thing.
It's not what you can do.
No,
Yeah.
people bitch about their water bills, and it's like you have drinkable water coming out of your sink.
Yeah.
It's amazing, really.
Yeah, it's all free, right?
Yeah, like they cost money to make.
Costs money to make, costs money to treat.
Distribute, pump. I mean, electricity costs money.
And then when you don't have water, when you go to turn on the faucet, the busiest day at any water utility is going to be shut-off day.
Well,
Phones start ringing and people start freaking out.
I mean, I will say that regardless of your political beliefs, most politicians are pro-water. Because if you can't flush your toilet or get water out of your sink, people get really upset.
Well, when they build a big house, too, you got to make sure water gets to it.
Well, you got to have enough pressure to, do their 17 showers. I mean, the reality is that, and that's what I love about this industry, is coming from oil and gas especially, is like, obviously we use that. All of us use oil and gas in our everyday life.
Right.
But there's alternatives. There's not an alternative to water. Like, there really is not. We all die. So that's the alternative.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. Like, we're really doing something that everyone needs.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about this. I got into this 13 years ago, and I always tell people that before that, if you would have asked me where water came from, I would have said the faucet.
That's what most people say.
That's pretty much how everyone.
I mean, I fly a lot for work, you know that, and I can't even tell you. It's probably, I shouldn't even say it. It's probably half of the people I sit next to have absolutely no clue.
Oh, sure, yeah.
How any of this happens. There's like, what do you mean? There's pipes. Like, how the fuck do you think the water gets there? I mean, that's
My personal favorite. I had a gentleman, actually an engineer, that was asking me about the the fire line with the hydrants on it versus the potable water line.
It's the same line.
Yeah.
If y'all didn't know that, yeah. No, and I actually didn't know that's like out in this industry. I would have thought it's separate. I guess you don't think about it, but yeah, that's drinking water that comes out of a hydrant.
Yeah. And so I guess we could talk about cross connection control a whole nother time, right? But everything else has to have cross connection. Well, except Montana. I believe Montana still has. Do they finally have the requirements now for backflow?
For backflow, yeah, they're getting there, and most of the country is. But I think cross contamination with a fire hydrant, like we've talked about this.
Sure.
Fire hydrant's an easy access point to a water system.
It is.
And I think that people don't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, probably enough said on that one if we don't want to run the risk of getting canceled.
They're fine. They understand it.
Well, no, I'm just saying in general with, it's a huge vulnerability.
It is.
It's a huge risk.
It's an access point to a system.
Yeah. I mean, we protect all other access points and hydrants you're talking about in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the water that's going directly into the tap.
That's the thing, is it's past the plant.
Right.
Because we can do a lot to protect, if it gets treated, but obviously if it gets past that into the distribution, you got a problem. And honestly, I think bigger security risk than that at the moment is cyber.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear this now at conferences and stuff, and it's real. I mean,
yeah,
I get scammed all the time.
Well, absolutely. Well, if I'm not, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the incident that happened in, was it Mississippi, where they shut off their pumps and. Yeah, I mean there
was one in Florida. It might be the same one, but I know there was one where they got into their chemical supply and they basically cranked a bunch of stuff. And
yep.
Yeah, I mean you can take out a whole
through SCADA.
And SCADA runs off what, Windows 95,
if
if not like older DOS. So I do think that as an industry that's something that people are like, oh, we talk about it, but it's like that's fucking scary.
Yeah, I mean, but you're seeing it too on the tech side, right? Some of the stuff that goes through. When you're having you're working with a pilot program, anytime you have access to their, like the Centrix platform, all that now you run through their IT and through their security. Almost every utility, the large ones at least. You know, like with Denver Water and Colorado Springs Utilities, that's usually where you get the biggest wait time.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's them doing their due diligence. Yeah, actually Vegas might have been the most like extreme IT screening criteria I've ever seen, but it was them doing their job, right? It was
Right.
like, is this safe for us to put our information in your network? Because if you get hacked, all of a sudden now you're coming at us. And so I do think that's something that we should all talk about more.
And then Mueller also had a global a global hack. I remember
They
that
did.
those days we had couldn't even get orders, tracking information,
Yeah, I
shipping
mean,
labels.
and we have extremely good IT security, but that's the thing. Is you look at these major companies got hacked in the last few years. No one's safe. The federal government's not safe from hackers, right?
Right.
They try to hire the best ones, but
Yeah, well, that's when you find out you're talking about Windows 95, and now everything they're talking about in some of these outdated computer systems that they have, where they have the records. It's that they're operating off of stuff from the 90s.
well, we were talking about yesterday, like cars getting stolen from the Denver airport, and I always was like, oh, old cars, right?
Right.
But the newest cars are actually almost easier to break into if you got the right
Sure.
equipment and technology because it's all computerized.
You can do it remote.
And that's kind of the thing that the water industry is going through is we're like digitalizing everything, but that
Sure.
creates way more risk. So everything's on like a server in house. No one can get into it. It's not on the internet.
There's give and take to everything, right?
There is. So
And that's really, you get into the technology side. Well, we're looking at it with AI, That's what's kind of amazing to me is how quickly AI has worked its way into water. That to me has been amazing because that was something that when it was first brought up, really, hey, this is coming. I'd say you first started hearing about it maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
well, and the adoption in this industry of technology is usually slow.
Usually very slow.
But
So
in this
it's
case, it has
shocked
not
me.
been.
Yeah.
No.
Which is
And-
encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to have to get on board with it because it's not going away. But Echologics, we were using AI before it was cool. Right? We were calling it machine learning.
Yeah.
Because AI was really scary to say. Now you can say AI.
Machine learning used to be scary. And then, after, a couple decades of Terminator and everything.
It still is kind of scary. I mean, Skynet will probably take us out. But the reality is...
Mueller's going to take us out.
Yes. The machine learning and the AI is all that I see it as is it's allowing us to do our jobs better. And people worry about it taking jobs. It's never going to take a water operator's job.
Nope.
You're
Can't
gonna
turn a wrench.
No. Who like what AI is going to go, do any kind of maintenance really?
Well, and really in this industry, when you look at it, it can be a huge benefit because you go to these rural water conferences. Just attended Colorado's.
Yep,
How was that, by the way?
It was great. So I did Montana rural water last week, Colorado this week. I got Idaho in 2 weeks.
Wyoming's in April.
Basically this time of year, it's springtime, and in the water industry, that's conference season.
Conference season.
And so for guys like us, that means you just go state to state and see the same vendors over and over again, and new operators, which is nice. But yeah, it's
Let's talk about that for a second with the new vendors. I mean, that's one thing that I've always said. There's good manufacturers and bad manufacturers, and it applies in every industry. And when I go around teaching some of the classes here, like with Action Now, and I'll be teaching tomorrow at Colorado Rural Water, what I tell them is the good manufacturers only exist because we need water.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really, if there's no demand, you're not going to make a product, right? And good manufacturers should be reaching out, trying to get the feedback, what the issues are, and trying to solve problems. Because without a water operator, there's no need.
Well, and I think the bad manufacturers, in my opinion, are the ones that don't talk to their customers.
Yeah.
Right, and that actually is.
Or
the
say you
fear.
should buy our product XYZ because we've been around for X amount of number of years and blah blah blah. And normally it's the ones that say, hey, you build off that. There's a reason you got as big as you did.
Mm-hmm. And you got to keep innovating. If you stop innovating,
Yes.
you are going to lose. And I think the biggest disconnect in this industry, and the thing that people don't realize, is that sales guys, right, like myself, and like we get a bad rep because we're sales guys. But at the end of the day, those are the people that are hearing the customers.
Right.
and bringing that back to their manufacturer.
The good one is, right?
Well,
Not
that's
taking
true.
an order, right?
That's true. And without those guys, though, there is no feedback loop.
Correct.
And you lose that.
Yeah. The innovation has to be there. If you're not innovating, you're stagnant, right? You're just sitting still. And like you had said earlier, I mean, this industry is one that normally when we're talking about AI is slow to adopt, change, new technology.
But what's also happening, and we've talked about this a lot, is that there's basically a change of the guard happening.
There is, yeah.
And you can see it visibly.
It's exciting, actually.
It is. That old generation is retiring and moving out. And we've got guys coming in that grew up with phones.
Yeah.
Like it's just a totally different world.
It's a way they can access information now is incredible. And they're not buying, one thing that you're seeing right now, I think with the younger generation, I even see with engineers, they're questioning stuff that has been a specification for years.
The status quo.
Yeah, which is good because that's what needs to change. I mean, right now we're sitting at 6 billion gallons of clean drinking water lost every single day.
That's just in the States, yeah.
That's every day in the States alone. So, and the definition of insanity is doing
the same thing
and expecting something different, right? And so we're sitting here with 6 billion gallons of water lost every day. Our pipes are aging faster than we can actually install and replace systems. Something's got to give. You can't keep doing the same thing, and it's encouraging that that's what really drives me. That's why I love what I do. I never thought. I mean, if you would have told me I was going to be doing pipe valves and fittings after my time in the Marine Corps, I would have said, "Yeah, you're crazy." I didn't think it was going to be as challenging, rewarding, and exciting as it is. I mean,
it's super rewarding industry. And I mean, honestly, like I went to school for engineering. That was why I went to school. I was good at math. I wanted to use my math skills to like design. I thought I wanted to sit at a desk. I sat at a desk for like a year.
Yeah.
And now I do this. Like I'm a nerd, but I do enjoy talking to the people and making that connection. And that's what makes it fun.
That's the best part.
And honestly, the people in this industry are good.
Yeah. I mean, the best part,
it's not profit driven the same way that like oil and gas was. Like water, we have to provide it. And most of these utilities are nonprofit, right? There's for profit, but at the end of the day, they're just trying to provide a necessity to people.
Right.
And so if we can help that.
Well, and going back to what we were talking about the AI is like in some of these areas in Wyoming, you talk to people that are out in, whether it's like Shoshone or, Lander, these areas, their systems are growing because populations are growing. Montana. I mean,
look at Montana.
Look at Montana and those systems are growing, but the resources aren't being allocated to the guys that are there. And so they're asked to do more with less. Their systems are growing.
Well, how do you do more with less? That's where technology actually...
Efficiency, right? Being proactive. And that's forcing a change, I think, in the industry. I
think you're right, because if they didn't have to do it, this would be another 20 years out.
And I'm glad that they bought on. They know that they'd have to. I wish that there would be more awareness. I think if the public really, really knew how dire what it's like out there, they would be demanding it. I think and I know there's efforts out there. I like seeing when there's congressmen or, for example, in Aurora, the mayor there, he's made it his kind of everyone has their initiative, and he talks about water conservation.
The governor of Idaho right now, same thing.
Yeah,
he's made a name for himself on that. And
should get him on.
Well, I mean, seriously, I think if you're in those kind of roles, that's a great thing to go after because how are you against that? You know what I mean?
Can't be.
100% of your constituencies should be like, yeah, I want clean water at my house.
Yeah, well, it's like what I tell the districts. I tell the when talking to the operators, I say, we're relying on you guys to fix this. I mean, we're here to help as a manufacturer or as a representative of a manufacturer, but we're relying on you guys.
Are you on city water?
What's that?
Are you on city water at your house?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, literally, like that affects you personally.
Yeah, City of Aurora. I always tell them I'm a paying customer. Don't I get a discount here? Can I at least use your facility? They got a brand new facility out there.
They have a very nice facility out there.
Yeah. I think maybe I can get some special access to that weight room and the theater.
At least get a gym pass.
Yeah, got it, man. No, they're doing some great things out there. Aurora Water is actually encouraging because they are looking at and seeing it more and more now, where a lot of these bigger utilities were just hell bent on the status quo. And now it's exciting to see that they have guys out there that are looking at innovative products and solutions. They know the challenges they face. You know, when you look at, on average, that number 15%, right, for your non-bill revenue, that doesn't come out of the sky, right? That's like an average. And we have areas that are 30, 40%.
I've been to towns that are 70 plus.
Wow.
You know what that means? It means 70% of what you create. Like if you were any other industry, you would go bankrupt instantly. Like you can't make 70% of your product, just throw it in the garbage and sell 30. But they're operating that way.
It's insane.
It's a losing battle.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. That's going to have to change. It's going to have to change. And I think it will.
It's coming. And that's I think that's what's really exciting about right now coming into this industry where we're at. Because, yeah, we're still seeing like the specs that were written in the 80s being copied and pasted. But like you said, new engineers come on board. These kids are in their 20s or whatever, and they're like, why am I just copying and paste this? Right. Is there a better way? And there probably is. Well,
and these guys are asking, and it's funny because it's like you have the guy in the ground, right? The guy who's installing the pipe, right? Then you have the project manager, or you have the lead, if it's at the lead operator, the supervisor, T&D, and then you get to the engineer, and there's always been a disconnect there. And, engineers have a tough job because they are, I did Intel in the Marine Corps, and I remember there was kind of a standing joke that you'd have people that wanted to, that thought because you were Intel, you knew like everything about whatever. It's like, no, sir, I don't know the atomic weight of cobalt.
They're in
that role.
And if they don't know, yeah,
and so they don't like to. If you can, an engineer can find, if they reach out and they find somebody who helps them, right? They don't like to feel like they don't know the answer, even though. But I tell them, you can't possibly. I mean, look at all the hundreds of products. There's no way, thousands for them. In different applications, there's no way you can. I think
where rep firms come in to play, because it's the disconnect between the manufacturers pushing out product, people buying it, and a lot of these towns have either outsourced engineer or one engineer, right? And like he's not gonna have the time to do that, so he needs other people that are experts on it.
And outsourced engineers are tough because, I understand that they're providing a value, and that's one of the things in that class that I talk about is, the problem with, not necessarily there's a problem, but you can work with a consulting engineer, but if you're relying on your city's plans and specifications being written by a consulting engineer, I think that's a problem.
It is. And honestly, I think one of the things that makes me the most upset, and I know I'm not going to fix it even just by bringing it up, but is that a lot of these really, really small, poor communities are the ones that do that. And they get screwed, right, if they get the wrong one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and that's what I tell, there's hundreds of products. You want to spot a bad manufacturer, it's a manufacturer that says, this is the end-all, be-all, solve every issue product.
If you say that, your product's the best and everyone else is crap, you're full of shit, yeah.
Because it can't be.
No, everyone's got limitations.
Everyone, and what works in, Big Sky, Montana, right, doesn't necessarily work in Cheyenne. What works in Cheyenne doesn't necessarily work in Denver. Every system is unique. It has its own challenges. It has its elevation changes, hydraulic grade line. It has difference in pressure. It has difference in soil conditions. All that stuff has to be into play. And so if you're going to write a copy and paste spec that you're going to distribute all over the place, you're in trouble.
When honestly, I found this interesting is when I used to just work up here in the Rockies, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought I really knew everything. I was really smart. I knew what I was doing, right?
We always do that.
Of course. Yeah. It's what's that Dunning whatever curve where, you know what I'm talking about? There's a curve where you basically hit this peak where you think you know everything.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then that's right before you realize you don't know anything.
I thought they called that age.
Oh, maybe that's just age. And then you start coming back up. And so I think I was there for a minute.
Definitely.
And then I started working in like California, in Nevada, in Arizona. Their problems are completely different than ours, right? They're super populated with no water. That's a super specific problem, and it's more relative for them, and that's more of the focus. And then you go out to like the Midwest, where there's a ton of water, and no elevation change.
Right.
And everything I thought I knew about, pressure and valves
Right.
means nothing because they're like, what's a PRV?
Yeah, we don't have one.
We
have an altitude
we
valve.
serve 400,000 people and have no PRVs. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. So, and that was eye-opening. I was like, and water towers are a thing, right?
Yep.
We don't need water towers here.
Yep. Yeah, but that's the whole disconnect with PRV and ACV, right? They say like, oh, we don't have any of those in there. Well, you do. It's called an altitude valve, or
They're in your plan, or
they're always there. There's flow control valves. So
the big blue ones. So.
yeah. Well, Well, speaking of, I mean, and I think it'd be a shame not to acknowledge we lost a great in the industry here.
Tedar.
Jon Tedar, yeah. Just terrible. I mean, that guy's a legend. I tell the story of how I met Jon Tedar. When I first came out, when I first started doing this, I realized automatic control valves is something that I can learn pretty quick, being new in the industry. Because I would talk to somebody, I'd go show, John Roberts at Corn, Maine. The guy's freaking, he's like a walking encyclopedia for water.
Totally.
And he'll tell you, where you stand. I always like John. You always know if you got a good product or not, right? You walk by, or I'd watch people come over, at like one of those conferences and look at something, and then they walk right over to John.
Hey,
And
what
then
do you think about
what do
that?
you think about that? And John would be like, oh, I think it's great, And I go, okay, got a good product, right? And then there you go. I think it's the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen in the world. It's like he's always going to give it to you straight. And so when I realized, I showed John Roberts one time a tapping sleeve, all stainless steel tapping sleeve, and just kind of went out to the plant. The manufacturer was Dresser or TPS, who was acquired by Dresser, and they had a different way of making it, so you didn't have spring washers for HDPE, and it was good for all pipe. And showing John Roberts, and he's like, "Huh, that's the first time I've ever seen that." And I said, "How long have you been in this industry?" He goes, 40 years. And I'm like, "Wow, you got a lot to learn."
Yeah.
But you're never going to learn it all.
No.
So it's about bouncing things off each other. And I mean, occasionally he'll call me up and ask me if I've seen this on butterfly valves. And, that's kind of how you learn. And so when I started, I realized, man, if I learn control valve, nobody knows control valves. Nobody knows PRVs.
People that work on them don't know.
Yeah. The engineer that puts it in has no idea.
I saw that opening as well. Yeah.
And so it's like they don't know it. And so if you can learn that quick, you can, and Jon Tedar, that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of knowing it, if you can also be available and you can help troubleshoot.
If you can explain
service,
it too.
explain it.
That's the thing, is to really be able to explain something on an elementary level, you have to understand it.
100%.
And that's, I think, where he came into play. And I remember the first time I saw those. And so actually there's a guy at Montana State. He's now running the engineering department there.
Yeah.
And you may know this. We put a PRV lab in the basement of the engineering building, and he brings his students in there and shows them PRVs. And his goal, basically, he was like, because he was a director up in Anchorage for many, many years at the AWU, and he was like, no one knows this industry exists, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And the PRV was his idea of being like, I'm going to show them this and see what they think. And
It's a cool product,
it is.
man. It uses hydraulics.
There's
It
no
actually
power, and it runs for 50 years and
Yeah.
does what it's supposed to. And you're like, nothing else does that.
Yeah.
I mean,
For the most part. Yeah.
depends on your water, but
Well, it's like I don't know. Were you still there with talking to that guy? He was down south out near, he said he was like, near the New Mexico border.
the one you were talking to, he
They
came
had the
back
issue,
with me.
yeah.
I talked to him for a while more. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that their 8-inch valve is set, should be set lower, right, than the smaller valve. I'm pretty sure it's the opposite.
I think that's all it was, and that
Simple.
just goes to the lack. And they've already talked to other people about the issue and not figured it out.
Right.
And
Yeah.
a lot of times it is a simple answer, right?
Talking to the consulting engineer, right? Well, I mean, even in the day, like,
Or they want to charge them.
Yeah.
Like, well, we can look at it, but it's going to be.
dude, it's so funny because I remember, and you can always spot a water nerd like that. Somebody that just gets up, because it's like when Nick and I used to work on valves, and we couldn't figure something out, man, it'd be like a silent drive the whole way back, because we're both just thinking in our head, or we're like, wait, could it be this? And it's like kills you, man, because you're like, and then when you finally find out what it is, it's like something obvious when they're like, hey, water's stupid.
So I went to school for engineering, right? But it was mechanical.
Where'd you go to
based.
school at, by the way? We forgot that one.
Oh yeah, so I went to my undergrad in Butte, Montana Tech.
Shout
the
out
Ore
Montana,
Diggers.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a real town. It's a real place. Really cool town. So I did my undergrad there. I did my master's in Bozeman, which is why I'm still there. Their airport's also a lot bigger, which helps with this job. But
Isn't it called Los Angeles now?
it is, yeah. So we've grown immensely. If you like that show, Yellowstone, big part of my town growing and my property value rising. So that was good. But when I went into school and I was like, what do I want to do? And I took a chemical engineering class.
Yeah.
Nope. Doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, dude, I can never do that.
But mechanical stuff like statics
Yes.
and that's really where like in pipes with fluid, like that all makes sense.
Yep.
Because I can see it.
Yeah.
And that's why I like PRVs. Like you can see exactly what's going on and like visualize the
Oh, when you
process.
fix it too, it's like so like what's funny is you can be around it as long as you don't let them know that you don't know what the hell's going on, right? But ultimately you figure it out. You're a genius.
Yeah, you're an absolute.
Well, and going back to that's where for me with Tedar, that's why I got into, we had Ames Watts control valves, which was unique because I don't care what anyone says, you can interchange internals and parts and components. So, but that was an only way I had in, and everyone. I mean, it was the point where I go to a city and they wouldn't even call it a clay valve. They called it a Tedar valve.
Mm-hmm. And that shows the impact.
That shows the impact that somebody who's providing a service and value.
And honestly, guys like that
generate.
are what got me in this industry because you get into this industry and it's much more of a community than you even realize. And there's these people that, so many people have learned from that same person.
Right.
And so you look at the impact. I think like a teacher in a school, right?
I mean, I learned from him. I mean, I'd call him up when I couldn't figure something out. He's just the nicest guy. I mean, the first time I met him, I knew who he was because of everywhere I go. I mean, Clayville probably had, and I'm going to say no bullshit, they probably had 90% of the market share for control valves, at least in Colorado and Wyoming.
They did a great job specifying themselves.
And that was really because it was word of mouth for, hey, who does this? Who knows this? Who can service these? And when I first met him, I was at a golf tournament for one of our distributors at the time. It was Grand Junction Pipe and Supply. It's now Ferguson.
Yeah, of course. Everyone's getting eaten up by
Everyone's
those two.
getting eaten up. You know
the other one.
Well, there's three now too. I mean, you got
Fortiline moving.
Fortiline's moving. Yeah, that's a good group too. I mean, they're all successful for a reason. And Fortiline's a good group. They're moving in. HD Fowler's moving. Out in Utah, it's the Mountain Land Show. There's
That's
a
true.
lot of,
Yeah. We go Montana, Northwest Pipe. I mean, there's these
yeah.
companies that, you've got the big national, but the reality is without those distributors, people, like, how would they even access this stuff?
You wouldn't. That's the point.
But,
Yeah.
So, like, going back, Mueller,
Yeah.
he set up this industry
His
in a lot of
network,
ways,
yeah.
which is cool.
And everyone fed off that, I mean, the same thing happened with Watson Plumbing. Mm-hmm. You run to you have Lowe's and you have Home Depot. The real value, for distributors, there's twofold. I remember a time when they were worried about an Amazon model coming into this industry.
Mm-hmm. I've heard
Right.
that too.
And the bottom
you got
line
Blue
is
Book. You've had Blue Book.
you've had USA Blue Book, right? The bottom line is if you provide value. So it's like, okay, so a contractor has an issue. Call USA Blue Book online.
Right, yeah.
Who are you going to talk to for a technical
The
issue?
returns
right?
person.
So as long as you have that understanding that a distributor's there to bridge the gap, right? So they're going to have some inventory available. They have inventory available. They're supposed to stock
They also
products.
have knowledge.
No, exactly.
That's
so as
the
long as you
value.
have salesmen that are providing the value and not just taking orders, you're always going to have that. Because everyone always wants to pick up the phone and call someone when there's a problem. Call Amazon. Tell them you got a problem.
Yeah. Call
luck.
AT&T.
Yeah, go
Call
buy a PRV.
Comcast.
You
can't even call Comcast.
I think you can call. I think you can buy, pipe valves equipment on Amazon. Yeah, have a technical issue and call Amazon. Right? Hey, what's going on with this?
We don't know. It came from China.
Yeah.
I mean, no. That is. I think what's so cool about what we do.
Yeah.
Is we're that bridge, and I've loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best industry. The best part too, my boss Brent, I remember him always saying this, that the best part of this is you get to work with your best friends. And I look at it and I have a couple of friends that I've known for years and the guys I was in the Marine Corps with, but the guys that I'm best friends with right now that I pick up the phone and call and shoot the shit with, we're all in the industry.
Well, and I think about like just this time of year, conference season.
Yeah.
I always kind of dreaded it first because you're like, oh, I'm gonna be on the road for like 10 weeks straight, right? But then, yeah, you get to these places and you see these people, and it's family, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And honestly, it's one of the only times I get to see my coworkers too, because I'm the only one up there.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So, we're going to have to note to self that we can get phone ringing echo back.
Yeah, I hear that.
Skies are, and I do want to give a shout out to Sky Jacob here. This has been something that I've talked about. Nick and I had talked about when he was working with us. And it's nice to see this come to fruition. It's something that she's been pushing me. So Sky's organized, and she's relentless. And
Well, I think honestly in this industry, there's a lot of guys that do have these conversations like us, but it's usually at a bar, right? It's usually like it's in a room somewhere. And honestly, I think the goal, at least, I guess, what is your goal?
My goal is to raise passion about the industry. That I mean, when I look at this and what we wanted to accomplish, and we talked about segments, and I didn't really want to do any of that. What I wanted
Like
to do
a learning
was,
thing.
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, I mean, there's if you need access to a video that's going to teach you how to start up a PRV,
There's plenty.
there's plenty of them. You can call me. We'll walk through it. We can do training classes. And then I see some other podcasts that it's like they have product on the table and they're selling. Like, I don't want to talk about any of that. What I want to do is do what I love doing, which is I'm passionate about the industry.
We love what we do,
Yeah.
and I think that's why when you
And I'm hoping that
this
change
up,
goes
like,
back, and this goes back down from, we're talking about water system operators and utility districts. I'm also talking about manufacturers. I mean, I want awareness all the way from the top down, even through the engineering firms, through distributors. I want distributors to, the distributors that do the best in their markets. It's crazy. You go to one area and one distributor has X amount % of the market.
I've always found that
The
interesting.
difference is the other guy has the guy that's winning, or the guy that has the most market share, has somebody providing value. And that's the bottom line. That's what I hope to accomplish. I hope to top down is raise the need for innovation, because we need it. We've lost that. I was watching a documentary the other day about the SR-71. Just came out. When I was a kid, I was raised Air Force brat. And I remember the first time I ever
Blackbird?
the
What is that?
Blackbird. First time I ever saw an SR-71 flying, it was like just
Badass.
I mean, that plane, I believe, I know that design started in the 50s, but every part of that plane needed something new. Every piece of that plane
something
was
you had
innovative.
to change that didn't exist.
Yeah. And they talked about the need for that. We've lost that, or what innovation means. We just kind of want to keep providing the next. So what we do is we get caught, and they called it this stagnant, slow improvement. So like the next year, and it's really cheating yourself, right? So the next year you have a product, or 1 year you have a product. The next year you have that same product, but you add one feature, but does it really provide value? Like,
Or every decade
yeah,
you do that.
It's like, but these go to 11, right?
Yeah, no, and honestly, I think this industry does need that shakeup.
Yeah.
Because you look at other industries. And
Oil and gas is. I mean, we go to the corrosion, the AMP conference it used to be NACE for corrosion.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're like there's only like 2 other vendors that are in water. And then the guy who heads up the whole thing for here is Antonio Florio, who's with Denver Water.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So corrosion is a huge issue. It's massive. And we're doing the same crap over and over. It's like, I get someone that is looking for bolt and gasket kits. And they're taking red rubber gaskets and bolts, and they put it on everything. And they want to know why in the hell their cast iron strainer looks like it's been sitting under salt water for 10 years. Right? Like no isolation, no insulation, nothing dielectric. It's it's the same stuff. But oil and gas paid people 10 years ago. They were paying people 6 figures plus.
Well, that's the other thing.
Teaching them corrosion.
Work with each other. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because the water industry, we're like, I think a lot of times the innovation does come from the outside, I mean, have you seen what Amazon Sidewalk talked about Amazon? You haven't seen that?
Amazon Sidewalk, no, huh?
Oh man, I saw this at some national show recently. What's up?
I'm gonna look this up.
Oh yeah, pull it up.
Amazon Sidewalk.
I mean, I do think this is the kind of game-changing stuff that will happen. And I remember I literally saw it and was like, oh wow, I could see how that makes sense. Basically, the concept, and I saw them at a water show. The concept was, instead of putting up, networks to move things around, right? So like with a meter network, you put up towers, you put up literal infrastructure, or in my case, a lot of times we use existing cell infrastructure. Amazon Sidewalk said, well, what if we just pull those data points back, like IoT devices, through everyone's Wi-Fi? Because everyone has Wi-Fi. And
Yes,
how close is their Wi-Fi to their meter? Close enough to pull that data back. Like, this type of thing, I think, can shake up our entire industry.
Yeah, Amazon Sidewalk is a U.S.-based shared encrypted low bandwidth network that uses Amazon. Oh yeah, okay. So these are the same things that connect your.
You basically could send like a water meter or pressure monitor data back through someone's Ring doorbell instead of having to set up some other infrastructure.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? And I saw him at a water show. Otherwise, I would never have known about this. And I was like,
So they're already thinking about that, which is good. I mean, that's great stuff.
well, of course they were trying to take over the world, and water's part of the world. But I do think like we should be looking outside of our industry as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like there's other places where they're doing some really cool stuff that could help us.
Absolutely, 100%.
And that's, I guess, what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Well, and this is crazy because a lot of people are like, how are you going to fill an hour?
Dude, we could probably talk for 4 hours, like legitimately.
Yeah, we could.
And if anyone listens to the full 4 hours, good for them. But
I think you'd be surprised. But one thing I wanted to go back to, because I know you were talking about the tech division, you were talking about Echologics. I'm sure there's a lot of people that do know, but many people that don't. Let's
that is?
Yeah, let's expound on that, because we do have limited time, and I'll probably make this thing go as long as I want.
Until they should kick us out of here. I mean, there's something that I'm very passionate about, and it's that. And so, like, I was working at that rep firm. I was doing my thing. I was going to school. I really enjoyed my life in Bozeman, and I had no desire to go work for a corporation. So I worked for Chevron for a while, really big company. And so big corporation, Mueller reaches out, and I'm like, did the corporate thing. But it was not Mueller. It was Echologics, which is a division of Mueller. And I was like, oh, what's that? And I Google it. And they're like, well, we're putting these things on your hydrants that find your leaks, and not just find them, but tell you exactly where they are. I was like, that's really cool.
That is cool.
And honestly, I'm not going to lie, that's what got me on board. And 5 years ago when I took the job, I went out, hit the streets, and started telling everyone how cool this is. And the reaction I got, yeah, it sounds cool, dude.
We're not doing it.
We're not buying that. That sounds very untested. Yeah, exactly. And how expensive.
And the hard thing, if you're dealing with AI, right, is that you're only going to make it better if you get people using it.
Exactly.
That's a hard sell, right? Hey, we need you.
We need you
because
to get better.
We're not quite good right
now. No, that's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was like, no one had, and I'd go to states like Wyoming or Montana, and they're like, and I go talk about this, like, that sounds cool. Who uses it? And I'm like, oh, these guys in California. I'm like, oh, of course. Who uses it here? And I'm like, well, no one. But until someone takes the first step, until someone takes that step, we're not going to get there. And I mean, just the growth and seeing what's happened.
It's incredible.
It is. It's really cool to watch. And it's people realizing, well, and talking to each other, like, hey, this actually works and makes sense. Yeah. Because why would I just wait for something to blow up when I could catch it?
And you're already in the great thing.
But you're changing the mindset.
Exactly. And that technology is going to, it's not going anywhere. And when you look at the improvement.
Go around these shows now, too, the national shows. We used to be the only ones. Guess how many there are now?
Oh.
Probably 20.
15, 20?
Yeah. I mean, people are like, wait, that's like a thing that could make sense.
And you guys have had a head start. So there's you guys have had to have growing pains, have had to learn.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I remember the difference in, where we were when our first presentation, when you and I went down to the Springs versus Denver Water, and where they're at in the pilot program, and how they can go through and, You have an analyst tag. The first time it's like you put it up there, and you get 300 and something possible leaks. The very first time the thing goes live, right? So now it's the system learning what's
We're building a data lake, and
yeah,
what's really fun about this job is I don't think I've ever gave the exact same presentation twice. Like I see a lot of these guys that push product and like they do a good job presenting because they've done the same presentation for 20 years.
Sure.
But every single month we're changing what we do and getting better. And so like I'm constantly changing what I talk about and what I think is interesting to people.
So why can't Mueller Co. be more like Mueller
More like
Technology?
Well, I think
I love the guys at Mueller. I mean, Wayne Ward, the guys that I know.
that shift is happening. Mueller,
Careful, you did disclosure, remember?
I did. No, Mueller was a a company that did infrastructure, and I think Mueller actually was smart enough to realize, long before a lot of the other guys, probably 10, 15, I mean, they acquired Echologics almost 15 years ago. That's some foresight.
Still bummed out about Chad Mize, man.
Oh, me too.
Never, man.
Another legend. But seriously, the foresight to see what it was a tiny little Canadian company. I mean, they're like, this is the future of the industry.
It is.
And like,
it's not going anywhere.
To be able to do that, and for the first 10 years, they're probably like, well, we fucked up. Like at that, because it didn't take off right away.
100%.
Of course it didn't. And
well, it takes time. Like you can't move. It's like, can you imagine? We're going back to the SR-71.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they hit. Like I said, every piece of that plane came from necessity and innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was, Kelly was his name. Forgetting his first name, at Lockheed Martin, who was the director of Skunk Works. He used to say, instead of looking at it's impossible, if you could, how would you do it?
That's exactly what we need to do.
And that's what needs to happen in this industry is stop with it's impossible. If we can fix it, how can we do it? We can get to, it's like I spent 12 years in the car business, right? And I used to joke around. I worked for Ford.
So you're a true salesman.
Car sale. Yeah, I did not. Yeah, I got into management in the car business. But I'll tell you, it's a different sale. But they had the same thing when I started. They were older guys, that were getting out. They had been around for years. And they did it their way from the 70s. They got everyone.
And
we
got
to a point where people didn't want, well, did it? It didn't.
It worked enough.
Enough.
And that's
right. And then it got to a point where it wasn't working. And you know what is correlated with that too is information. Mm-hmm. So when the internet came out, right, you couldn't get the plaid salesman out there telling you it's the best deal in town.
Well, you Google it in 2 seconds.
You can Google it in 2 seconds.
That's the other thing about being a salesman now is like,
you better be
before
right.
you show up, they have already Googled you.
You've already looked
and
it
their
up.
Company, and like
100%.
they know exactly what's coming in. You're right.
And that's why it's just the best thing to do is tell the truth on anything. Hey, if it's not the right application, I'm going to point you in someone else's direction or in another product. It does me no good to get to sell something that's not going to apply. It's like, prime example, plastic pipe for Echologics right now. Mm-hmm. So what's the next innovative step? Figure out plastic.
Yeah. So luckily right now there's still a lot that's not, and that's the stuff that's breaking. But you're right. In 50 years, and we need to start thinking that way.
You have to.
And yeah, I do think the guys that succeed in this industry and gals is the ones that take that step back, and instead of saying, well, I work for this company, so I'm going to sell this product to everyone again.
Right.
That's the worst way to do business.
Right.
And you're not going to last long here because people talk.
And this industry is very small, as you and I both know.
Which is cool because it's communal. But the other piece of that is that you can't just go around and bullshit make stuff up because you won't make it. So I do think that innovation is coming and it's happening. And the reason I've stayed on with Mueller is because I'm seeing them realize that and focus on it. And because Mueller, you're like, okay, well, I'm a big company, I'm a giant, but look at like Amazon 15 years ago, didn't exist really.
Right. Yeah.
And now look at them.
Look at like
the that's what you look at the
iPhone. Look at the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to Iraq I was deployed. Started out, went to Kuwait, and during the Iraq War in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the iPhone was not even a thing. I mean, I remember 2001 Super Bowl, they introduced this is going to change the way you communicate.
People are like, no.
And look
I don't
look
like
at the
change.
access of information, you know, and that's.
Dude, homeless people have iPhones. Like, seriously, like everyone has an iPhone.
It's the first thing they're giving them when they come across the border.
But seriously, like everyone has a
Everyone
smartphone.
has a freaking phone.
And you can literally, from anywhere in the world, call someone on their bullshit, which has changed a lot of things.
Dude,
And
Watts
it's the way
has
we
an app
interact.
now where you can go on the Watts site and you can take a backflow, you can put it up to the pipe, and it'll put the backflow device on, like,
To show you the wavelength.
yeah, visualize it. I mean, that's the type of stuff you got to do, and we're not
That's cool.
doing it at that level.
And we could be.
We could be, you know. I mean, Mueller and Watts remind me a lot of each other. You know, one's heavy waterworks focused, and the one's been
More
invested in
commercial.
commercial. Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask you too. So you were talking about World War II, or the plant starting in 1907.
1907.
So what did Mueller do during World War II? Let's see if they're real Americans.
What did they do?
Yeah, with the plant. Anything to change anything?
Yeah, they turned it into what it needed
Yeah.
to be. And actually, well, World War II was one of the best times in our country in a lot of ways because a lot of people from a lot of different places
Best time meaning how people came together.
came
and-
together
yeah,
in this
yeah,
country.
Yeah.
Don't twist my words there. But no,
Canceled.
Within this country, people came together because
Right.
we had a common goal and
Yeah.
a common cause. And you know what's really cool is when you get thousands or millions of people with a common goal, we can do all kinds of shit. Like,
Oh, it's like Kennedy and the space program, right? I mean,
When everyone
provided
wants-
you believe that we went to the moon.
we did.
Of course we did.
I think.
No, the Earth is flat, man.
Well, there's still a moon somewhere.
It amazes me how many people that actually have degrees actually believe that
That the Earth's flat?
the Earth's flat.
The Earth's
yeah.
not flat, guys. I fly a lot. That's just not real. But
well, yeah. So people are forgetting too that, like, when I was in the Marine Corps and in Intel, I did imagery, and I was an imagery analyst, and we used to have to go grab film from pilots, U-2 pilots. These guys are flying in the stratosphere.
right, you get up high enough, it's not flat. You
Seen
can
pictures.
see the curvature.
The Earth is not flat.
Yeah. So regardless of if we went there in the '60s, we know what it is now.
Yeah.
And I do think that common goal, and that's what I was getting at with like other industries in water, is water needs to branch out a little bit.
Yeah.
We definitely we have a super cool community intertwined, but there's stuff we can learn from other places.
I think it'd be amazing. So my son came home, and this is a shout out to Aurora Water. No, I'm not trying to lower my water bill. It's already good enough. You can raise it, by the way.
You should raise his.
Should raise it. Anyway, in general, everyone should raise it. Water, it's not cheap to freaking
The fact that
produce.
people fight back on a 3 cent raise.
Oh, if you could do a little bit, I mean, imagine some of these innovative products and solutions we're talking about. Ultimately, long term, the problem is people just don't trust people in lowering rates if if there's efficiency, but if you're a public agency, right, you can report your loss rate.
You know what it is?
I'll guarantee you. Here's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. Here's
Sure.
a crazy thought. I'll bet you, if a water utility district went to its constituents, right? So went to everyone that it services,
Like to its homeowners.
yeah, and wrote a letter and said we're going to have this meeting, okay? And they're going to throw out their water loss and what their challenges
Like
are.
a town hall event.
Yes, yeah, and people got involved in pushing this out there. I guarantee you could get anyone to sign off of it because it's done in per 1,000 gallons, right?
100%. But you know how it shows up? It shows up on a ballot with a couple sentences.
Yeah,
And
but
people are like,
but if you did that and then you talked to them, you did actual stuff that the way that this was all supposed to be,
I
which
think
is outreach, and you got them doing that, you could get them to accept a rate increase
Totally.
in order to and say the projects, tell them what you're looking at doing, and saying, look, if this works, right, or when this works, when we can get our water loss rate to here, we're going to reduce your bill. And if you did that, because I think that would work.
well, currently it's an uphill battle, right, for a lot of these guys. And I think the problem is we've devalued water in this country.
Oh, 100%.
Like what we pay.
Well, look at Las Vegas.
Right. Well, seriously, you go buy one of these, which thank you for providing these. But like you look at one of these and what this costs, and people pay that all day long, not gonna.
Yeah.
but then they bitch about their water bill, and it's like you're paying fractions of a cent a gallon.
So take that and take the cost of that, right, and put in 1,000 gallons, and then you'll see what your water district is paying. And the reality is, a lot of this shit comes out of a tap with just a filter.
Yeah, of great value. I'm guessing it does.
Yeah.
Sorry, Walmart. But like the reality is that, yeah, people have devalued clean water in this country. And I do think public outreach is how we change that. We need more utilities
And manufacturers. Yeah, my son came home with a whole workbook from Aurora Water. They were out doing the school districts. They were out teaching them about where water comes from.
That's awesome. You know, actually, I went to the North Dakota State Fair. This was not work related, but this was really cool. So we were walking around the state fair, and there was a booth that it was like a tent, and they were handing out free snow cones and water. I was like, what is this? And it was the water departments from all around the area just sitting there at booths to talk to people and with the snow cones, trying to get kids to understand what they do. And I thought that was so cool.
And we need more of that. And I think manufacturers would be happy to provide. I mean, like, look, don't get me wrong. I'm okay with all the ACE and the WEFTEC, but it's like, what are those booths cost?
We're jacking ourselves up.
What does that booth cost, Mueller? I mean, you gotta give me the skinny, man. I mean,
it's a large dollar value to be up front.
Is it above 50?
It's a lot.
North of 50?
It's probably.
Yeah, north of 50. Not quite 100.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't pay those.
But how
bills.
much? But look at. But I understand. I mean, that's why when you go to WEFTEC, you see these booths and you hear about how much money people spend on these. Think about the impact you could take if you went down in the communities and you worked with school districts. You worked with high school kids.
Oh, dude. So I'm actually on.
My son's actually going to be.
Are you trying to get him a scholarship?
No. I wish. I mean, he's a.
There are scholarships for water.
He's a 4.0 student, and he already went on and registered on the Watts website, and he's taken all their classes on PRVs.
That's because you're his dad.
No, he did it on his own.
Wow, but he knew about the industry.
But he's not sure what he wants to do. He's a 4.0 student. I think his weighted GPA is 4.3.
We need more of those.
He's going to start out in the warehouse in May. It's like, dude, you could. He's like, I can go to college if I want to later on, but he wants to get in the industry, and I can't stop that because if he's young and passionate,
willing to bypass college to just get in.
He wants to start out in the warehouse in May, and then he'll figure out if he thinks
super
he wants
excited
to do
about
so.
that. I can
I'm
see.
not actually. No, he's supposed to be better than
Family
me.
business, dog.
Yeah, he's supposed to be better than me. That's not my business. It's not my. Well, it is. I mean, I look at Brent like a father, so it somewhat is, but it's like you always want your kids to be better than you, right? It's like, well, that's me. You're.
But obviously, he admires you to some extent, which you should take that for what it is.
I do appreciate that. He's a good kid. So,
they're like, dude, I'm on the Montana AWWA outreach committee because of exactly what we're talking about right now. High schools and colleges, I've been trying to focus on that and just awareness, getting people to realize that this industry exists and that it is super important, and that without bringing young blood in, we're fucked.
Yeah, 100%.
And so anytime at a show that I see the young guys, like the really young guys, like I'm still a young guy according to the old guys, but you see the really young guys walk around, like I always try to like make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Because like I want them to stay. We need that. We need that energy.
How old are you, by the way?
Me? I'm only 32.
I mean, you're not that old, man.
Old enough to have some senior shit.
I'm cranking 46 here in May.
That's not that old either anymore.
Yeah, I feel pretty old.
70 isn't even that old anymore.
No, well, and that's, yeah.
I mean, we all used to die at my age, so like, well, we're talking.
Brent's going to be 60 next year.
Yeah.
Turned 59. Look at the guy freaking.
He's got better muscles than me.
Oh, he's yoked. He's stacked, dude.
I mean, yeah.
You guys built like a brick shit house, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I do think that, and actually mentality and age is like so when I first was trying to figure out like who will buy this leak detection system from me, because it is like pretty advanced and it's kind of the future thing. And I always was like, I'm gonna go for the young guys, the young managers. And I found that wasn't true either.
No. Well, because they're wanting to please they learn from
you just
old
gotta
red.
find like it's a specific character that's like, I'm gonna make a name for myself by being like, I'm gonna try this thing, and if it works, I win. And you need someone to take that risk. is really what it is. And
Well, that's why you've done so well in Aspen, right? And now he works for Mueller in Utah, right? Mm-hmm. But that's a good thing. That's the type of people that we need out there. You know, I mean, the Nick Martinez, I feel like, I work my tail off to try and bring, to light those issues. The Marty Walker and
Marty
Ryan,
Walker.
Like the guys like
Shout
that.
out to
like,
Marty.
Yeah, those are the guys that are out there.
They're changing the game, and
It needs to be done, and they're educating. And the good thing is they're not doing it from a standpoint of selling.
No,
right? It's like
not a greed thing. It's not a money thing. It's I'm doing this to make a difference.
Yes. And the reality is, if you do the right thing and you're working hard, right, things just take care of themselves. Like, Pat Bowlen, he was the owner of the Broncos. And they used to ask him all the time, like, why, the Broncos were the most successful organization in the NFL from, as far as wins, from like 1975 to 2000, 2013 or whatever it was.
And so how'd that happen?
And they asked, how did it happen? And he said, I stopped treating it like a business. And I went to win. And I figured if we won, everything would take care of itself. Mm-hmm. So to me, I look at it as those guys aren't in it. They're not in it to get rich. They're not they're not treating it like obviously they have a business and you have to be business savvy.
You got to make money to feed your family and all that.
But if you're in it to win.
And that's never, honestly, dude,
you're gonna
money
win.
has never been what's driven me about this. I get job offers to go other places. I could make more money. But I love what I do because I think that it can make a difference and change the industry.
100%.
And that, to me, is what drives me. That gets me up in the
100%.
morning.
Yeah.
Like, you hear the stupid cliche thing about, like, oh, do what you love and blah, blah, blah. It's, like, not work. That's real.
It is real.
Because I get up every morning and I'm like, I'm going to go.
That's what I tell my kid. My dad taught me that. Shout out to my dad. He used to always say, like, the secret to happiness is doing. You found all these people that hate what they do.
It's a passion.
And it blows me. It blows my mind. Why would you ever?
I've met those guys.
I had a job one time in my life that I felt like I was in the Office Space. Right?
Yeah, you're living in a fucking
moment.
sitcom
Yeah.
and everyone,
Yeah, and I'm like, I come in, I kind of do a little work, jack around the computer a little bit.
play some solitaire.
Play some solitaire, go to the bathroom, try and
20-minute shit.
Yeah, just counting down the clock, and then I dreaded Sundays. Now I like Sunday. I love Sunday because I'm ready to go into the office.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure, like, my girlfriend, Emily, is like, God damn it, like, why does he like this so much? And it's like, because
you love what you do.
It drives me because it's like we're making a difference. And even if it's small at first,
It's a difference.
That impact grows. And
It's a big difference.
Yeah. I do think that's why you and I originally connected, because it was like,
Oh, dude, yeah, it was
you
like,
meet people and you're like, oh man, you actually care about
did
this.
we just become best friends?
We literally said that, Step Brothers quote. Well, because it was like, dude, like, we're not in this to just make money or like go to work and get my like, dude, I work at all hours. Like, I probably work 90-hour weeks some weeks, but I don't even notice.
You can't take it with you, right? The money.
No, exactly.
I mean, it's nice. It's like I remember telling.
I've had too many people in my life die to think money's important.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, it's not.
I remember one time I was joking with Brent, and and I'd been working at Rep Masters for about 6 years, and we were driving to the airport on a business trip, and and he was asking about how the change has been from the car business to this, because I was running a dealership.
Yeah.
And and so I told him, and I said, well, I'm really enjoying the time. He's like, yeah. He goes, well, money's not everything. And I looked at him and was like, well, that's just something rich people say. Right?
I mean, yeah. You have money, so it doesn't matter.
But it doesn't solve everything.
But it's kind of
plenty of people who are wealthy that are miserable people.
Oh my God, I've met them.
Yeah. They probably run your company, and some of the ones we represent.
Oh, dude, the richest people, that does not bring happiness. No. It's finding something you're passionate about.
Meaning, yeah.
Yep.
That you're gonna leave, and that's what I learned from him. Legacy. Mm-hmm. Legacy's everything.
Oh, it's huge, and it's like, I mean, yeah, I do think that's why I will never leave this industry, regardless of what I do, because it's something I care about.
Yeah, well said. I mean, me too. That's how I feel. That's how I know a lot of people, and that's why I love the people that work in this industry, because I know there's a lot that do feel that way. And I'm hoping it changes. It has to change. What I tell them is look, they may not deal with it, right? So I'll tell those operators, this crisis is here. We're at a critical juncture. If they may not have to deal with it, maybe their kids don't have to deal with it, but I guarantee you, your kids,
Especially
if we
when
don't
you're
fix
talking
it.
about like the Colorado River Basin and
Oh.
what goes downstream of that, like that's going to be a serious thing. And I mean, you look at actually right now, if you didn't know this, 1 in 7, the world's population cannot get to drinking water.
Crazy. Yeah.
They have to go more than 20 miles to find water. 1 in 7. I guarantee you, in my lifetime, your lifetime,
If it's not fixed.
it's going to get worse.
Yeah. And look what we did over toilet paper during COVID.
Yeah, exactly. We're greedy fucks. And so, like, Americans being like, my water bill went up. It's like, you should be happy you have water. Like, it's...
Well, I think we accomplished some great things here. Even just doing this, everyone's like, "What are we doing for the pot? What's the goals?" But I do have one last thing that I know, because I know time's crunched. But we have a segment. We want to get segments in. It's called Tales from the Trenches, which is basically like stories from the industry.
Okay.
And I promised Sky that you were gonna share the only reason that you're able to drink the way you can,
Oh, man.
which is your electricity. Yeah, you became a superhero.
Yeah.
That's the story we got. We need to hear that story.
Is it my near-death story? Is that where
That's your Tales from the Trenches story.
Yeah. So this is this really did actually change my life, and I still think about this moment a lot, because it was one of those things where you look back at it years later, and you're
Sure.
like, my life would be way different if had that not happened or had it happened differently. So yeah, prior to this, I was working a rep firm, and we were selling all kinds of stuff, right? But I sold pumps, was a big piece of what we did, and I'd sell a pump, and I'd go put it in, and I'd turn it on, and I'd make sure it worked, do the startup and all that. And I loved that. I think it was super fun. Like, I got to go to all kinds of different weird places in Montana I didn't know existed and put in pumps. So this job's in Bozeman, which literally 10 minutes from my house. And so I'm like, oh, easy one, whatever. Head down there, kick the thing on. It's an irrigation system. It's they put in some new soccer fields, and it's pumps to irrigate the soccer fields. And so I show up, contractors are all there, like, we got it all ready. Where you been? Hurry up.
Yeah, right.
It's
yeah,
typical
totally.
stuff, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm here. I got my crescent wrench and my
And they
whatever.
convinced you to turn wrenches.
They did. So I did I got my checklist. I got my things I got to do. And so I check everything out. Looks all good. Get to the panel. Everything looks all good. We turn it on. Pump's spinning backwards. Pumps don't push water very good, and they spin backwards. So everyone immediately is like, oh, it's spinning backwards. I was like, oh, I know how to fix that, right? It's a 3-phase pump. Swap 2 leads, right?
I wonder how many people are listening to this right now. If they are, they're going to be like, oh my God, I know what's happening here.
Yeah, he's like, this guy's about to fuck up. So no, seriously, I was like, oh, I know exactly what the problem is, and it's super easy fix.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna look like a genius when I do it, right? Because it like takes 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was
You'd
like,
be like, oh, yeah, I got this. Oh, yeah.
So-
I walk out of here, it was like, oh, you're so great, Mike.
yeah, Mike's 20 at the time, right? So like super confident. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I got this shit. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's turn off the panel. And they're like, oh, panel's off. So they went and turned a breaker. I watched them do it. Breaker's off. What they did not know is that didn't actually shut the power off. So
Bypass.
me not knowing enough about electricity, and this is why I'm in water, not electrical.
They're very
engineer.
similar.
Yeah, they're very weird though. Electricity's weird. So I was like, oh, panel's off, right? I trust this guy that I've never met in my life. And instead of testing it like any other electrician would have done, and again, I was not qualified to be doing this, I put an Allen wrench up to try to turn that thing on. And literally, so shout out to Ariat Boots. Saved my life that day. I swear to God, because I put the Allen wrench up to do that, and before I even got to it, so this is 480 power, about 1200 amps. It goes into that Allen wrench, and I still have this Allen wrench in my house. It's really actually pretty cool, but the back end of that thing, spider like octopused into the side of the panel and blew a hole out the side.
Holy
like
shit.
shot a lightning bolt out, and my hand was burnt, like charred. But if that had gone through me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here. And
No.
all the guys that were there were like, "Oh,
He's
first,
dead.
Well, first we're all like, what the fuck just happened?" And then when they realized what happened, they're like, "Oh my God,
He's
we gotta
dead.
get you to the hospital." Like, how are you alive?
Were you conscious? Did it knock you out right away?
I flew back. 'Cause
Okay.
if you've ever been hit by electricity, you get.
I mean, yeah,
Thrown.
not to the point where I got thrown. No.
I got thrown. So yeah, basically like we're all hanging out talking, just everything's cool. And I pull up to that thing and yeah, I get blown back, but I'm alive. And I went to the hospital and my heart rate was over 200. I was jacked.
Dude, you became a superhero then.
I think so.
That's why Mike Uthe.
I think it did. It changed my trajectory of like what I was doing with my life, because every day after that, I started to wake up and be like, I should be dead. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do with it? No, I really do feel that way. And,
no, I can understand that. 100%.
It's changed my outlook on a lot of things, like what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's like without like that moment, I was like, literally, I think it took me like 2 weeks before I really like
Would you have
registered.
would you own an island in Alaska without that day?
No.
Which is a cool fact that I had to throw in there.
No, thank you for that.
So you went to the hospital. You did it knock you unconscious?
No. Just jacked me up.
It's jacked you. You were just freaking yoked.
I was super yoked. And literally the weirdest part is my arm like kept flexing. But yeah, so I told them what happened and they were basically like, you should be dead.
Yeah.
Like you put your body like, but the I swear to God, those boots, man.
It's the thickness of the sole, right? Like insulated.
They're electrician boots, basically. They're my oil field boots.
So dielectric insulation works.
Back to pipes and insulation. It's a real thing. Yeah, no. So it was easier for that Allen wrench to like spider itself out. Like literally tentacles came out of the metal to connect to the wall. It was easier for that to happen than to go
Did you see that actually happen? Is that like one of your last? Because I know when you get knocked like that,
it happens so fast.
But you remember seeing
it was still in my hand. My hand was clenched so hard on that thing, and so I look at it, and it's got the little spindly things out the side, and I was like, what the fuck am I holding? And yeah, no, that day was
You arced.
I learned multiple things that day. Not an electrician.
Yep.
Never again. Will not touch electricity. I'm a water guy.
Yep. And water and electricity, right?
They do. They run. You got amps and volts, right?
Yeah, but they don't mix.
No, fuck no.
So like if you're a water guy, don't
touch electricity. Oh, dude, that's a great point. Yeah.
If you're a water guy,
stick to your trade. Stick to your trade.
I always say, look, I always tell them when they're talking about like solenoid valves, I'm like, I'm not touching anything there. I can tell you what happens when you put power to that, but I am not touching anything that does not have water.
If you want to try this at home, take a toaster, plug it in, drop it in the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, water, electricity.
So most people don't know that I was a Mormon missionary, and we used to do this dumb.
That's my favorite part about John.
We used to do this dumb trick. I served in Mexico, and shout out to my BYU Cougars. Doing pretty good now, 6th seed in the tournament. But so we used to do this deal where we didn't have hot water in certain areas. So I was in this area that was near Chilpancingo, Guerrero. I do speak Spanish still.
You almost nailed that rolling arm.
Chilpancingo, Guerrero, Radio
Ooh, okay, there it is.
Yeah. So we, but we would take buckets of water that you would shower. You would use a little cup, and that was how you showered. And we would get the cheapest iron that we could get. That was just a straight iron with no setting toggle. It was like either on or off.
On or off, and it burns.
And we would put it in the water, in a bucket of water, and you could see that water just. And we'd heat it up like that. So yeah, I learned don't touch water with electricity.
Yeah, I learned that.
Well, this has been great. The last thing I did want to do is I did want to go back to just that shout with John Tedar. I do remember meeting him at that tournament. He was wearing the same Marine Corps hat that he's wearing, that he always wears. And I had no idea who he was. So I walked up, me being a Marine, I came up to him and I said, "Hey, Semper Fi." And he was just the nicest guy. "Oh, hey, Semper Fi, Devil Dog, what did you do? When were you in the Marine Corps?" And we talked, and then, I told him who I was, what I did, and he said, "Well, he's like, 'What's your name?' And I was like, 'John.' He's like, 'My name's John too.' And I was like, 'Well, I'm Jon Davis.' He's like, 'I'm Jon Tedar.' And I was like, 'Oh, Valve God.' I mean, this guy's a legend. And so, just a shout out to him. Rest in peace. That was
definitely.
lost a legend, and tragically too. His hobbies were golf and building his planes. I don't know what happened, but in my understanding, he's been doing it for forever, building those planes, and he's a meticulous guy. So, just sad.
It's sudden and stuff like that.
Sudden, sad to lose somebody like that. So, shout out to Jon Tedar. But hey, I appreciate you coming out here and doing this. This has been, people thought there's no way you can fill that time, but I was like, no way, man.
I was like, dude, I feel like it's been 10 minutes.
Dude, I was shocked when I looked down and it was like, we were 50 minutes in and it felt like it was.
Shit. Yeah, dude, I had no idea.
Yeah, we're running about an hour and 20. So
Nice.
it's gonna be good. I like this, man. I appreciate you being the first guest.
I was the guinea pig, and so anything I
kind of felt like it was meant to be like this. But I appreciate it, man. Love you. Thanks
Appreciate
for coming
having
out.
me,
And
man.
love your passion.
Oh, dude, I
Appreciate
love what
that.
I do. I do.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
All right.